Good afternoon. This is Jim Electrical Whitehead. How are you? Okay, as promised this morning, I am going to relate to you some of the issues, and in this case, there's a bunch of different things we can do, and we will do, but we kind of take a small little segment every time I do this. What we're going to talk about today is the state of our electrical infrastructure. Now, what personifies problems, as you would expect, is bad weather, especially hurricanes with excessive wind and storm surge. Now, you might sit there and go, why do we still have wooden poles and have our infrastructure of electricity up on these poles in the wind, the heat, everything else that goes along with being out in the elements? Now let's start out. I'm going to give you a little history. And, it was fun doing the homework on this because I even went and looked back at my old town, Barrington, Rhode Island. That's where my parents moved in 1950. I was born in 1949. I know you're probably saying, ooh, really? That long ago? But I'm still here. Anyway, okay, this is when we talk about something that could have either gone right or left or right or wrong, however you want to put it together. What you're looking at is a representation of the Tesla coil. Now, that's Nikola Tesla. And what he put together, in fact, his benefactor that was giving him money to develop what he thought was radio waves. And I guess you could look at the Tesla coil and go, yeah, that's possible. Well, in actuality, Tesla was developing electric that literally was wireless. And I'm talking about 1900. And what happened is, he was getting close, and God bless him. He was like, well, this will be free for everybody. Now, before him working on this Tesla coil, and he invented what we call alternating current, we had Thomas Edison that had developed, which we still have today also, is what we call direct current versus alternating current. Direct current was okay, but the big problem with it, it couldn't go very long distances. So, and as we say in life, you follow the money. And Tesla was saying, no, DC power is not what will be our future. So he developed alternating current. And that's what we have today. You put the time factor together and you'll see how old. And this was the Tesla coil. And again, it would have been free wireless electricity. But you can expect or understand the profit motive generally is where we don't do anything that we don't make a lot of money with. So his benefactor that was backing him with a lot of money, when he found out, and this is, by the way, not exactly what it looked like back then, but it kind of gives you an idea. His benefactor said, I thought this was going to be, radio, like Marconi's radio, when he spoke from Europe over to the United States. And, the point was when his benefactor found out that, no, this is not going to be radio waves development by this device. He said, I'm not interested in what you're talking about now, and I'm going to cut off your funding. So that ended, I hate to say, the development of this technology that you can imagine what it would be today. Because this is 1900. And he made so many advances on so many things. And if you follow his life, you find that money corrupts people. Not me, of course. But go ahead, send me money. That's okay. Anyway, he had invented a lot of different things, not just the Tesla coil, yada, yada, yada. But he, in essence, was competing with alternative inventions. And he had a bunch of different things. He had a big warehouse, and he had a bunch of different things he was developing. And God bless him again. He wasn't in the profit motive. I mean, I'm sure he felt that, not everything can be for free, or you can't build everything for free. But it isn't even where you'd say whether it cost, more money then, we would have much better technology today. But instead, people just said, no, I don't want you to compete with what I'm doing, and I'm going to burn your factory down. And that's what they did. So he ended up losing a lot of his different inventions. And I'm not going to go into any more of them right now. It's just, people just said, I don't want you to compete with me. So they said, well, let's burn his factory and burn all his neat inventions down or destroy them. So what ended up happening, if you say a competing factor, and again, this is circa 1899. And it was a wooden pole. And, they're showing that people are showing off, and the electrical guys are standing on this wooden pole. But that was the beginning of saying, no, instead of this wireless thing, we're going to just do an infrastructure of all these wooden poles up in the atmosphere, up in the heat, wind, rain, weather. And that's what unfortunately won out. And because of the profit motive, it has stayed here. As a little aside, I'm a generator company in addition to a content creator. And, luckily we had with both Helene and Milton, we had our backup ready to go, and we had power and all that stuff. But what was funny, here's our pole in, our little bit in our front yard by the street. And that's our famous transformer that they've changed somewhat over the 100 plus years. Are they better? Yeah, probably. In fact, from what I understand, they're not even, I'm not even sure on this, but they might not even be made in the United States. At least the ground level transformers. That if we had progressed years and years and years ago to say, no, 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 we're not going to put all these wires and transformers up on wooden poles. We're going to do underground. And that's mainly what Europe has done. We just got into this, I make a lot of money with the poles, the transformers above ground, and that's what we're going to do for 125 years. What was funny, and as you know, and I'm not trying to pick on our utility company directly, it's just the problem is there's just one of them. There's no competition. I can't say, I'm not real happy with my electrical. I'm going to go to, instead of this one, I'm going to go to that one. No, no, no. You want electricity? You get it from one place. And whatever you do, don't compete with our electricity. And as a little another aside, I know I keep going over and over on sides here. They don't like solar power because, again, that doesn't involve this infrastructure. And the generators and the solar generators that I'm doing now, I'm self-contained. And it probably will even get to a point where I won't need all of the power that I'm getting right now from our utility. But here's what I'm showing you the picture for. The utility company locally is supposed to ensure that there isn't a lot of growth, leaves, branches, etc., near a transformer. And that's what's around our transformer. Now, to be totally honest, and I've told you before, I won't lie to you, we should have called on this ourselves, because they do use, and I'm going to destroy their name, it's a Splende. Those are the folks that drive around and, these bucket trucks, and they trim. And they pretty much, that's what they do for FPL. So anyway, yes, we should have called on this and had this done in retrospect a couple, 3 months ago before the hurricane season. But the Tuesday morning, it might have been Wednesday morning actually, when we started to get some of the effects of Hurricane Milton, I'm out in the garage, and I exercise on a bike, and I have the garage door open. I heard, and I've never heard this before, but I heard this weird, and it happened 3 times. I heard this weird electrical buzzing noise, which I'd never heard before. Now remember, I've been a generator guy working around electricity and all this problem for 20 plus years. But what happened, I would hear this and we'd lose power. Maybe for about 10 seconds. It would come back. Now, one of the scary things of electricity going on and off, on and off, on and off, is we can have surges and we can have it where it causes damage, etc., etc. Well, I heard it again in maybe 10, 15 seconds after that. Zzz, and we lost power again. It happened. It came back on. And it happened again. It happened 3 times. So I'm saying this is just something not right. So I walked out to the pole and I said, I need to call FPL because I think because of the wind kicking up, I'm diagnosing that we're losing power, within 2-3 seconds, then back on and off again in 2-3 seconds, that it's all related to the wind and moving the branches around and hitting the wire. Now, you can't see it in the picture, but if you see a line that goes up, that's the line that goes to a fuse. And it's like with anything. When we lose power, the first thing I do is I go out and see if we have no power at the meter on the house. And then I walk out to the street and I look at that fuse. It's about a 1.5 feet long, maybe. And what will happen is if it blows a fuse, that thing will pop down and the fuse will actually drop to the ground, but it's already, you might say, the fuse is popped and it's no good anymore. But what happens is here, they can't reset it by just saying, I'll flip a switch and that gets reset for the whiteheads. No. They literally have to come out, and they don't necessarily have to have a bucket truck. They have this long, it's like it's a wooden pole, and they can put the fuse in the wooden pole, reach up, put it back in the fuse holder, and then pop it back up, and it makes connection. And now you get power again. So that's what I check first to see if, in the event, it's only our home that has lost power. And, I do these series that hopefully teaches and helps where you'd say, to see this all, it's not that you have to get, anywhere where you say, it's dangerous out there. I mean, unless it's in the middle of a rip-roaring, crazy storm. But this was, it was a little windy, but nothing earth-shaking. And if it had blown the fuse, we would have had to say to FPL, we are the fuse for our transformer, and we happen to be on this transformer is for us and the people across the street. So anyway, I'm saying, okay, it's not the fuse, we're good. It's something with the branches. So we called FPL. And we said, okay, we get a problem. We got branches around our transformer. We're not doing any trimming orders. I said, wait a minute. I'm not just here and telling you on the phone because I don't like, having branches around the transformer. I'm telling you that I'm pretty sure we're losing power. And again, the storm hadn't even really, I'm saying if we're losing power now, oh my heavens. Well, all the lady could say, and I don't usually get mad or angry, because what's the point? Especially if you're talking to a monopoly. They'll say, go ahead, get your electric somewhere else. So the lady just kept saying, we're not taking any orders for trimming around the transformers. So call us back in about a week after the storm. So I said, ma'am, so in other words, I'm telling you that we think we have a branch problem on our electricity and we're losing electricity, and you won't schedule, when somebody's in the area. No, we're just not taking any orders. So that was it. Now, since we've had these poles since 1899, or maybe even before that, this is the anatomy of what you're looking at. You've got the cross beam A and B and C. They are high voltage wires. Now I'm talking, and I might be wrong on the exact number, but this high voltage that's up above and it's insulated from the wooden pole that goes down to the ground, and also the pole is grounded, so it's pretty safe. It's either 10,000 volts or even higher than that. It could be 17,000 volts. And now you're seeing where you come down and you see, that's E. E is that fuse system that I told you about. It comes down from, and they call these high tension lines. It's not tension as much as very high electrical level. But that comes down, and then that goes through that fuse, and then it goes down to G, and that's the transformer. Now, the transformer is exactly what it says. It transforms that extremely high voltage down to what we would describe as 120, 120, 240 as a total. And our homes either need, you won't be tested on this, but our homes need 240 volts. And if you go and look at your panel, you have two legs that come in to your panel. And one is 120, the other one is 120. And some things in your home run on 120 volts. And that's like, TVs, refrigerators, most things. But we have the second 120 that has it where in your inside panel, it combines the 120 into 240. And so the breaker that you have for an air conditioner, hot water, dryer, oven, in some cases water pumps when you're on wells, it needs both 120s. So it combines them, and so the things that only need 120 are only a single breaker on one side or the other side. If it's 240, you have a double breaker that's going across both lines. Both circuits coming down. So in other words, you get 240. Very safe. And I know I have the habit of needing to want to tell the whole story. But D is, and you'll see this, is what we call a neutral wire. What a neutral does is, and I know I don't mean to get too technical, but, and it's not that this is rocket science, but anyway, the neutral kind of balances those two 120s. So another power problem you could have is that neutral wire going down, and if you still have the two 120s, what happens is, unfortunately, now what is coming to your home is not balanced. So even though the total power coming to the home is still 240, it's not going to be 120 and then 120. It could be 140 and 100 volts. So that means half your home is running on too little power, the 100 volts, which isn't good. Or worse, you're running, instead of 120 volts into your TV, your power strip, you're putting in 140 volts. Well, guess what? All this stuff gets burnt up, to be honest with you. So when I would get a call from a generator customer, and I mainly was over in Davie, Florida, on the other side of the state, if the customer said to me, "Hey, Jim, we got something really weird going on here. Some of our stuff is, you can tell the light, if it's a light, it's dim. Or in some cases, our kitchen light just blew up." I'm like, uh-oh, you have a neutral problem. And these were my generator customers. So the good news is, I would say, make sure you get on your generator. Because what it does is, it shuts down the utility connection. So whether it's good or bad, it's going to be off. And it's not going to be continuing into the home. But the thing, and when people would lose power, depending on what they said, I would first say, okay, go out, look at your meter, tell me what it's reading. Now, in this scenario where I'm saying we get a neutral problem, a neutral wire problem, you will still be getting 240. So air conditioners and anything that needs 240 is getting 240. It doesn't know that it's unbalanced. It just says, oh, I'm getting 240, I'm happy. But everything, as I said, that's 120 is going to really get sick to its stomach, big time. Okay, talking about polls and polls and polls, they get into like saying, we're going to be there for you, and we got 5 billion people without power. Well, if you had not done it and continued for the last 125 years doing the same thing with power, we wouldn't be in this situation. And it's all a profit margin, because here's what happens. If they go out before a storm, and this could have been, not that in speaking to them locally saying about, we think we got a tree problem. They don't, if they have to send out a truck before a hurricane hits, that's on their expense. And, so I'm not saying that's why the lady said, we don't do anything with tree trimming until 1 billion years later, after the storm is gone and you've been out of power for 5, 6, 7, 8 days. But the bottom line is, they don't, and again, I know I'm kind of like, I tell you like it is. And a lot of people say, Jim, you're a generator guy. Why do you care if there's power issues as to how you're getting power? And if you had great, reliable 2024 power equipment, Jim, I don't think we need you anymore. Well, they still need me. But the point, I'm a righteous person. I don't like to see things wrong, and I don't like to see things and people hurt, because it's a money motivation. When, so bottom line, back to the profit margin for a minute, a motive. If the storm comes, they won't come out, until pretty much the storm wind drops below 40 miles an hour. And so now the hurricane's gone through and they have all these repairs, all these wires down, all these poles broken. It's on our expense. So in other words, and it's almost like, well, it's not our fault that we have to fix things. So we have it where we're going to charge the customers. So they go to the Public Service Commission, and they'll be doing this for Helene and Milton. And they'll say, okay, we spent $481 million. I'm just throwing out a number because I have no idea. But to see where the tab is going up, God bless the linemen. And again, this is not picking on anybody that works on these lines. It's really just the upper echelon of these electrical companies that has allowed our grid to just keep getting worse. So they, if they went out and said, all right, we're gonna fix this and yada yada yada. No, we'll wait until a hurricane or whatever knocks it down, and then we can go and get paid by the customer. So what you'll see is, well, there's going to be an additional, and because we had 2 hurricanes like within 2 weeks, who knows? But it could say, well, spread out, every customer in the system is going to pay an additional $10 a month. And it could be more, it could be less. It just depends on the cost. And as I started to say, God bless the linemen, because we had linemen that actually came from California to help us down here. So, they come here, they got to eat, they got to have lodging. I get it. And I appreciate them coming here. But again, some of the stuff could have been fixed or strengthened prior to the storm coming. But the biggest thing with FPL, the utility, is they don't fix things unless they're broken. So even in good times, they don't say, well, we got a transformer over by the Whiteheads that is 21 years old, and we swap them out at 21 years. I don't even know. But no, they don't. And what's interesting about transformers, they get the cheapest transformers they can buy, and some of them get them, a lot of, at least the ground level, were from Mexico. And nothing against Mexico. But, we don't get them built in the United States because we're going to have to pay more for them. Well, that's not a good answer. But anyway, the point is, they only fix what's broken. Now, the interesting thing with the transformers is, you might say, man, that's a metal canister that's up on a pole, and we have heat, sun, and sun. Now, these transformers, to try to keep them a little cooler, is they have oil inside. Now, that's not technically active cooling. It's not like circulating. But, if in the event that was empty inside, other than the connections and wire, yada, 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 they'd be failing like crazy, because the inside that transformer, it might be 180 degrees, 160 degrees. But the oil keeps the temperature down a little bit. But here's what happens as they get old. They spring a leak. And it isn't even noticeable. You're not saying, whoa, I'm looking up at the transformer and I'm seeing all this oil pouring out. No, you don't. But what happens is sometimes you see these transformers that they're so rusty. And that it could mean that they're fine. But in other words, things that are coated not to rust and they're rusting, there's a problem there. Should you at least maybe replace that transformer? So they don't. They just, I guess, they wait until it blows up. All right. Well, there's some more poles. And here's what happens. They don't go, okay. Because I know here, in Florida, I think there was 3 million people without power. And there's still people without power. But, they don't say, well, we're going to fix this right. No. What they will do, especially as an example, probably with the poles you're looking at, because they have not totally broken, they will probably expedite, because people will say, oh, I want my power, I want my power, I want my power. And they'll put them back up. So here we go. What have we actually fixed? What have we made better? What have we made where it won't happen the next time? No, we haven't done anything. So that's the honest truth. And I'm not, as I said earlier, I'm kind of righteous on things. I think I always feel what's fair. And the way a monopoly functions with the power in this case is not fair. Period. I don't care if they say, well, we have the lowest rates, whatever. No, I don't care. We want to make sure we don't have problems. And as a generator guy, I used to go to a customer's home to service their generator. And in some cases, I would see, unfortunately, their connection, their meter that's on the house, and that goes over to where we have our transfer switches for the generator. All of a sudden you look and you say, oh my God, these are all like somebody just took a blowtorch and totally incinerated the inside of that connection. And I always would say, I wish I could witness this, because I'm now just seeing the after effects and what we've got to do to fix it. And here's the other thing that's interesting. When you have in this case, the 120, the second 120, the neutral, if they're only responsible for the wires that come into the top of the meter, not even the meter itself, even though that's FPL. So they're like, unless it's a wire that's up in the pole that's all burnt up, the customer is responsible for where the wires come into the electric meter. We're only responsible for that connection right there. We're not responsible for it goes down, goes through the meter, and then goes in to the customer's home. So, the customer just got fried, and they, in essence, say, well, it's not our problem. Well, who's delivering the electricity? God? He would, and he wouldn't charge you. But they're like, sorry, it's not our problem. So the customer has to replace what we call the meter can. And it could be a bunch of wires, could be wires to the generator. It's like, unfortunately, don't open up that door, because you're going to see a lot of stuff you don't want to see. What we're looking here, these are the main transmission lines. Again, above ground, and you'd say, well, those aren't wooden. Well, you're right, they're not. But can you see that on the right side, the wires are just going down to the ground? That means wherever that transmission line was going, lines, they don't have power. That's it. So, I know. And, the bucket truck. God bless the bucket truck. If we had ground level or below ground, we wouldn't be in these situations because, wires do go bad when they're underground sometimes, but not like what we have above ground. And the other thing that is very wrong, boy, I'm telling you, I guess I'm really picking on people today, but what's wrong is they're allowed to do this. It's called direct burying. So, as a generator guy, all our wires that we were bringing from the transfer switches or switch over to the generator have to be below ground and in PVC. Gray PVC that's either Schedule 80, which is above ground. So if we are running wires in the PVC and it's above ground, it needs to be Schedule 80 PVC, which is stronger than Schedule 40. So anything we do below ground, which is irrelevant in a sense because it's not that PVC is that expensive, either Schedule 80 or Schedule 40, but whatever you do, because it's all going to be inspected, don't put Schedule 40 above ground. Because when the inspector comes, I don't mean like not a utility inspector, but the actual electrical inspector for the town or city, they'll go, this is Schedule 40. You're going to have to replace that to Schedule 80. And admittedly, some of the things we had to do, you'd go, oh, really? I mean, what's going to happen? But, code is code for 20 plus years. Don't cheat. Don't lie. And I would say to customers, I will, A, not tell you something I know is wrong, and B, I won't do anything that I'm hoping when the inspector comes, he's not going to see it. Because, how it works with generators, it isn't like you put it in and you go away and don't call me. I had the pleasure, in most cases, of continuing servicing this customer, taking care of their generator, and anything along with that. And, that's why the business is so good, because I would have customers for all the time I was in the generator business. And installing a generator is so time-consuming, and the amount of hours you have to put in, all the inspectors, and 10 inspections a lot of times, you don't make money on the installations. You make money on the service after it. So I'm telling you some secrets that you probably didn't know. All right. Well, now that I've beat on everybody, and here we are, another street with not the same poles, but they're down. And I didn't even pick some of the pictures I could have that would have showed so many poles just all like on top of each other. And you'd say, are they just going to come and like separate them and put them back up? Yep, that's what they're going to do. And you're going to pay for it, even though we're doing a half, I don't want to say the A word, but they're doing a half A job. And you don't know because you're saying, well, my electric's here, I can watch TV. So anyway, I hope you've learned something from this, because I love doing this. And, the smarter consumer, and I think if anything, you'd say, well, what's your point, Jim? Well, if you know there's problems, you know you're paying for problems, you know that you're paying for fixing things that are broken, but you don't actually fix them so that they're going to last very long. Or, it's like holding with the glue and chicken wire. I mean, it's just very unacceptable. And we as consumers sit there and go, well, yeah. And the last thing I'll say, and I know I talk too much, but bottom line, the Weather Channel, wonderful. CNN, and I'm not picking on any particular news outlet, but they, especially Weather Channel, they'll say, well, okay, there's going to be this amount of storm surge. There's going to be this amount of potential winds. There's going to be in the next statement, sometimes they say it before they do say anything else, there's going to be multiple power losses. And I understand they can't sit there and go, they shouldn't have it like it's so easy to destroy all these poles and the wires. No, they just have to kind of accept and say, there's going to be a lot of power losses. So that's why, one reason why, even though I'm a tech guy and a content creator because I've gotten older, the fact that I have to tell you the truth of things I know, because it's what you should know, and you should not necessarily just accept everything. Well, that's the way it's always been. No, it doesn't have to be that way. And what I know, I say I wasn't going to talk any longer, but interestingly, Texas, about 2-3 years ago, they had a real crazy cold snap, and what they have in Texas are multiple utility companies. So you could say, well, I'm going to be with XYZ. No, I'm going to be with ABC. And what happened in Texas during then, they are not, have no interfaces to the national grid. So, and this is what happened. People lost power. And if they didn't have backup power, it's like, well, my ABC isn't fixing it, or my, XYZ's not fixing it. And some people were paying astronomical rates for electricity for short times. About 3 days ago, I saw where they're saying that Texas, for the first time, is linking to the national grid. So it's like we have to have a plan B or a plan C. My whole life has been plan A, B, C, D, and E. And that's especially with any generator installations and fixing and all the things you have to do. Nothing ever would go smoothly. And if I don't have a plan B, because if I only have a plan A, and plan A is like blows up, I can have a plan B, and maybe a C, and maybe a D. And that's exactly what I've done with power for this home. I have EcoFlow Delta, the Ultra product, and I have it where what's neat about that, it's integrated. It's got batteries. You can add additional batteries. Also, I have, because you can charge the EcoFlow Ultra. You can charge that with either solar panels if you might be able to do it with AC power. And when I mentioned at the very beginning about Thomas Edison and he invented DC power. Well, what we have in today's world with our solar panels, it brings power down from the panels in the form of direct current or DC power. And, depending on, in this case, my EcoFlow, it has an inverter. The battery power goes into the batteries as DC power. So that's why you can charge it in so many different ways, either a generator, a car, solar panels, in some cases AC power, depending on the circumstances. But bottom line is, it's like here you've got to have multiple, in my opinion, multiple choices to make sure you're safe and you have electricity. We weren't out of power that long, but bottom line, if a refrigerator, if you don't have power, that food is good if you keep the doors closed or door closed on the refrigerator. It's only good for about 4 hours. So after 4 hours, the food starts to go bad. And, you can say, and yeah, the freezer will be a little bit longer. But if it's an extended power outage, you're going to lose a lot of food. And when we rationalized, I love to rationalize, is try to make it sound like you made a good decision. But, I'm saying, okay, we added the generator this time. And yes, I will take care of it. I will have it for a long time. And I will have more than one way to charge our system here when we lose power. And so the generator, it's a relatively small generator. It basically was about $1,000, 950 something. So the rationality here is we didn't know how long we'd be without power, and we're thinking the last time we had power losses when we've been here a year and a half. We've lost power for 9 hours. We've lost power for 4 hours, things like that. Without any backup, our battery Ultra EcoFlow system has enough power to run our home for about 10 hours, 12 hours. But not knowing how long we were going to be without power, we said we better add an additional charging option. And that's why we bought the generator. And again, we had power, and our refrigerator worked normally, and our air conditioner worked normally, and, so on and so forth. So you try to say, well, if we had not had enough time and we all of a sudden, didn't have power and the sun wasn't out yet and so on and so forth, we'd be like without power. So the generator, is good. Now, the one thing I will say about generators, and I know I'm sorry, I said about 10 minutes ago that I was going to say one more thing. But I really like you to know these things because really they can keep you safer, they can save you money. But the biggest thing, and I'm still a Generac dealer, and I've been since Wilma in 2005. The portables, and Generac still sells portables, but they run on gasoline. I kind of in a presentation yesterday, I spoke about my running around trying to find either solar panels or, you know, a generator that was appropriate. And what I mean by appropriate, if you're getting a generator that's only running on gasoline, it will be great the first time you use it. But gasoline is a terrible fuel from the point of view of longevity. Even if you treat it, it lasts about 6 months. And then it starts to go bad. I could walk up when I would be fixing portables, and I wouldn't sell portables, but I would fix them. I'd go out and I'd say, hey, what's the gas situation? Oh, yeah, this is fresh gas. I could get within 3 feet of the generator without doing anything. And I could smell that, I'd say nicely, of course, I wouldn't say you just lied to me, but you telling me that, yeah, it's fresh gas is not going to make it fresh gas. We wish we had that control. It's fresh gas. So I'd say, well, this is not fresh gas, and your carburetor's all gummed up. So I'd have to do this over and over again every spring for people. Hey, Jim, my generator won't start. And I'd say, okay, I'll be out there. So I would replace the carburetor. And what was particularly wrong in the carburetor is a little jet that's about this long, and you can't see through it really, but what it does is when it's pulling gas through the carburetor, that little jet takes, a stream of liquid gas, of course, and mists it, puts it in a fine spray into the cylinders, and then the spark, fires it. You have all these mini explosions. I mean, it's pretty creepy. But if that jet has a little bad gas sitting in there and it gets all scummed up, guess what? The generator's not going to run. So you're going to need to pay me every year, thank you very much, to fix your generator. Now, I would say to them, please, this is how you can make sure it's the next time you need it, it's going to be there for you. And some people were pretty good about it. But most people were like, you'd say, did you brush your teeth? Like a kid, right? Did you brush your teeth, little Johnny or Susie? They'd go, yeah, Mom, I did. They'd say, no, you didn't. Your toothbrush is dry. So it'd be like, you telling me you brush your teeth doesn't fix your teeth. Well, you telling me that you've got fresh gas? If it isn't fresh gas, you saying it isn't going to do anything, and you're going to pay me. Now, what I would do is I would say to them, look, I'm going to 99.9999, it's the little jet in the carburetor. And Generac at the time, I don't know if they still do, but they would have these $8 kits. So I'd buy a bunch of them. And literally it'd come with gaskets, they come with a new float, I can just go on and on and on. But all I would, in essence, do most 99.999, all I would do is take the old jet out, throw it away, and put a new one in. And I would say to them, if this doesn't start, I don't charge you. Because really I put labor into it, but I didn't really put, the kit was $8. So it isn't where, they're my customer and I'm going to really take advantage of them. But the biggest thing is, that's the problem. So I know you're saying, where are you going with this, Jim? And I even turned down some generators that were gasoline oriented. And I said, I won't do it because it's just against my whole theory of 20 years of the problem with gasoline. So luckily, in the unit we bought, this is not sponsored, we bought a Champion. And I looked here and there. There were a whole bunch of different units, but of course, people bought them. And unfortunately, people have a big thing where they think a generator is a generator is a generator. Well, not really, not at all. And again, one is the fuel issue, but the other is the size. Well, I thought, because I went into Home Depot Sunday morning, and all they had left were some gasoline generators, portable generators. And a lady was standing next to me, and I'm saying, well, I'm not buying. And it was $8.99. It wasn't even cheap. And I said, the lady said to me, it was 6,500 watts. And she said, can this run my air conditioner? I'm like, probably not, ma'am. Might run your refrigerator, and you got to run extension cords. So, I don't know what she did because I left, but I wouldn't buy it. And when I went back 3 days later, even though I couldn't get solar panels quick enough, so I said, I'm not too far from one of the Home Depots I'd gone to. I walk in, or I'm walking in the parking lot, and I see people wheeling out these Champion generators. And what they are is dual fuel. What it means is I can run the generator we have now either on propane, and we put 2 tanks in, and my presentation from yesterday will show the generator, will show the tanks that we have. Propane is very good gas in the sense of clean. It doesn't go bad. It never gets old. Just like me, right? Never die. Oh boy. Anyway, so dual fuel is the way to go. It would have made almost no sense if I said, okay, I'm just because I can't find anything else, I'm going to buy a gas generator. Now I'm going to have to get those, the right containers. I'm going to have to get gas, and you're going to run out of gas, and storing gas is dangerous. So, and as I mentioned before, it goes bad. So the dual fuel, we're running that generator on propane. And it will never get gummed up, or because, again, it's 2 separate systems. The gasoline tank to the engine, the gas regulator for the propane also going into the generator. And you wouldn't be using 2 fuels at the same time. They also make, and this will be the last thing I say, they also make tri-fuel generators. Tri-fuel is gasoline, propane, and natural gas. So propane and natural gas are separate gases, and you don't buy natural gas tanks or anything like that. It's really, and there isn't a lot of natural gas over here in Naples, but typically, you would have, if we did, you'd have, and I don't even know the gas company over here. It might be Tico, but over on the East Coast, it was Tico. And they would, when, let's say they were building homes and streets, they would put their natural gas lines under the street. And they would have it where they can run a line, of course, from that connection to your home, with a meter, and that's how you would have, in this case, natural gas. But anyway, I hope you learned something again today, and thank you very much for helping me. And I know you say I'm an animal channel. This doesn't sound too much like animals, but I guess the big excuse is we have our wonderful Jamie. If we didn't have air conditioning and her food and her everything else, we would be not doing the best for our family. But anyway, God bless everybody. Hopefully this might be, Milton might have been our last hurricanes for this season, I hope. Pray. But thank you very much. And again, I appreciate you being here. Thanks again.